and long for a dynamic, adventurous, and even dangerous life? Do you wish to make your life count and hope to make an impact long after you're gone? Do you wish to live a life of service to society, to country, and to dear Mother Earth? Then you are the one we are looking for. Consider the Society of Jesus. Join the Church's gallant army and turn your world upside down. Call the Jesuits Vocations Promotions Team 426-6101, local 3406. Once again, 426-6101, local 3406.
You're listening to the voice of the Blue Eagle.
You know what it is?
Ateneo Campus Radio. Radyo-katipunan, 87.9. Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang simbahang lingkod ng bayan. Ang Social-Political Apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan. Join Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle as he delivers to us the preachings of the Sunday's Gospel that's awe-inspiring yet easy to understand and appreciate. Let us all listen to the Word of God here on The Word Exposed on Air, only on radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM.
Susunod na ang Baka Naman Pwede sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM.
Radyo-katipunan.
Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay Atenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugod, todo sa kayod, dunong at tulog. Lipat na Blue Eagle, kaning giting nagigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan.
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede. Mga isyung napapanahon ating pag-usapan. Baka naman pwede. Gamit ang mga pananaw mula sa iba't ibang kalinangan.
Baka naman pwede.
Mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture, kami inyong samahan, tayo'y maghuntahan. Dito lang sa
Baka naman pwede.
Tuwing Huwebes, alas 3 ng hapon, dito lang sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Nakikinig po kayo ngayon sa Baka Naman Pwede, isang programa ng Institute of Philippine Culture at ng Radyo Katipunan na naglanayong pagnilayan ang mga napapanahong issue gamit ang lente ng agham panlipunan o social sciences. Nais din nating makipagkwentuhan ang mga bagay na baka naman nating pwedeng tignan muli, pag-ukulan ng pansin at aksyonan. Ako po si Cherie Alfiler ng Institute of Philippine Culture at ako ang inyong magiging host sa hapong ito. Onting recap lang po ng nakaraan nating episode. Noong nakaraang episode, nakasama po natin si Arjan Aguirre, Glenda Gloria, at Roy Mendoza para pag-usapan ang naging legasiya ng unang EDSA sa ating bansa. Ayon kay Glenda, hinulman ng EDSA ang practice ng journalism sa bansa. Ang pagbabalik ng malayang pamamahayag ay isa sa mga bunga ng 1986 People Power Revolution kung saan naging instrumento ang journalism sa paglalabas ng mga makabuluhang istorya, mga katiwalian sa gobyerno, paghingi ng accountability at aktivismo. Nagbunga rin ng EDSA ng paglago ng civil society, pagdami ng mga NGOs, at paglawak ng democratic spaces sa ating bansa. Ipinaliwanag naman sa atin ni Roy na ang EDSA bilang isang proseso ng pag-unti-unting pagbagsak ng rehimeng Marcos matapos ang pagkawala ng suporta ng middle class, business community, simbahan, international community at ng militar. Ani Roy, mahirap i-undo ang 21 years ng rehimeng Marcos at mga mina ng problema ni Cory sa loob lamang ng 6 na taon matapos ang EDSA. Bagsak na ekonomiya, laganap na kahirapan, problema sa panlupa, coup attempts, insurgency at iba pa. Diin ni Roy, ang nangyari sa EDSA ay isang democratic opening. Pero hindi ito kayang solusyonan lahat ng problema. Nagkaroon nga tayo ng karapatan, eleksyon at mga proseso ng konsultasyon, pero ang mga nanalo naman sa Kongreso ay mga trapo. Dagdag pa ni Glenda, nagkaroon ng pagkabigo na tuluyan mabago ang ating political at economic system sa mga susunod na taon dahil na rin sa patuloy na pamamayani ng mga political clans at oligarchs sa bansa. Diin niya, bagamat ang EDSA ay isang democratic space, ito rin ay arena of contestation, kung saan ang governance ay nakasalalay sa kritikal at aktibong pakikialam ng mga mamamayan. Panghuli, hinimok ng ating mga bisita at ang mga tagapakinig na patuloy na pag-usapan ang nangyari sa EDSA, pag-aralan ang kasaysayan at bumalik sa pag-oorganisa sa pagpapalalim pa ng demokrasiya sa ating bansa. At para sa mga gustong balikan ang nakaraang episodes ng Baka Naman Pwede, mangyari lamang bisitahin ang Facebook page ng Institute of Philippine Culture at ng Radyo-Katipunan. Ngayong hapon naman, bilang pambungad sa ating Women's Month celebration, makakasama natin si Ms. Cristina Batalla ng Move as One Coalition at si Atty. Joan Dela Cruz ng Ateneo Development Studies Program at Gokongwei School of Management upang pag-usapan ang impact ng mga kababaihan sa pag-oorganisa at pagsulong ng pagbabago sa lipunan. Ang episode na ito ay pinroduce kasama ang Ateneo Development Studies Program at ng LS Gender Focal Point Committee. Sa mga manonood natin sa Facebook, pwede kayong sumali sa ating kwentuhan. Mangyari na lamang i-type ang inyong mga komento at katanungan sa comment section at babasahin namin ang mga ito sa ating Q&A portion mamaya. Alright. Ngayon, hayaan nyo naman akong ipakilala ang ating mga bisita. Ms. Cristina Batalla is a bike commuter and advocate for safe, humane, and inclusive mobility in the Philippines. She serves as the active transport lead of Move as One Coalition, a youth and queer-led multi-sectoral policy and budget reform coalition of over 140 organizations. She also represents them at the Intergovernment Agency Technical Working Group on Active Transport. Ms. Batalla also co-leads the Make It Safer movement, or MISMO, a community of over 200 cyclist commuters advocating for safer streets in Metro Manila. She graduated cum laude from Ateneo de Manila University with a degree in Development Studies and minor in Sociology, focused on sustainable cities and participatory governance. Ultimately, her simple but ambitious dream is for every woman, child, and person with disability to be able to commute freely in our cities. As such, she is committed to developing more initiatives to empower more women to commute and participate in policy decision-making spaces. Sa ating mga tagapakinig at manonood, bigyan natin ng masigabong virtual na palakpakan si Miss Cristina Batalla. Welcome sa Baka naman pwede, Cristina.
Hello, magandang hapon po. Ayan, happy ko pala sa Ayan, magandang hapon po. Salamat sa introduction.
Cristina ba or Tina ang itatawag sa'yo?
Kahit ano po, pero okay lang naman ang Tina.
Alright, sige. Tina, hi! Ayan, ngayon naman, ipapakilala ko sa inyo ang ating pangalawang bisita. Attorney Joan obtained her Juris Doctor degree from Ateneo de Manila University School of Law with second honors in 2018 and her Bachelor of Arts in Development Studies minor in Global Politics from Ateneo de Manila University with honors in 2009. She was admitted to the bar of the Philippines in 2019. Owing to her DS background, the late Secretary Jessie Robredo invited her to join his team at the Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, to assist in his focus on the developmental aspect of the department's work. As a lawyer, she can merge her experience in development and law as a policy associate in Imagine Law. This non-stock, non-profit, public interest law organization designs and advocates for evidence-based policy solutions to public health issues. She is also a part-time lecturer at the Gokongwei School of Management and Development Studies program and a volunteer supervising lawyer at the Ateneo Legal Service Center. Yan. Sa ating mga tagapakinig at manonood, bigyan natin ng masigabong virtual na palakpakan si Attorney Joan Dela Cruz. Welcome sa Baka naman pwede, Attorney Joan.
Hi, good afternoon. Sabi ko para palang DS reunion to. Bilang si Tina, kamiting ko lang din last week. Sabi ko, akala ko magkikita kami today. Online. Online pala, hindi on-site. So, hello sa lahat na nakikinig.
Alright. Maraming salamat pong muli sa pagtanggap sa aming imbitasyon ngayong hapon. Katulad ng nabanggit ko po kanina, ang episode na ito ay bahagi ng ating Women's Month celebration na may temang Envisioning Development Futures, Investing in Women in Development. O yan. Bago tayo magsimula, baka naman pwede nyo kaming kwentuhan tungkol sa kung ano-ano yung mga pinagkakaabalahan nyo nitong mga nakalipas na araw, Tina and Attorney Joan, no? Kung ano ba yung pinagkakabisihan nyo nitong mga nakaraang araw. Sige po.
Sige. Actually, ayun nga nakakatawa kasi this is not only a DS reunion, but it is also a road safety coalition meeting. The last week we had a meeting, tas Attorney Joan led that because well, with my work nga with Grupos 1 and then sa Make It Safer movement, right now very much involved in two things. Resistance and pushing for women-centered advocacy. So on the policy side, so we're mobilizing to push against the banning of e-bikes and e-trikes on our major national roads. And also on the weekends, I've been doing my best to work with other women cycling leaders to conduct bike commute workshops. And then other things that we've been working on is also solidarity with the public transport sector and pushing for other accessible and inclusive provisions in our budget for 2025. So, ang dami pong nangyayari sa ating sektor, pero masaya naman at nandito pa ako buhay.
Ayan, ikaw naman, Joan.
Thank you,
Kamusta?
si Tina na nauna kasi binanggit niya na yung road safety. So, isa yun sa mga trabaho ko katrabaho ko sila ang Move as One on the issue of road safety. Pero nabanggit kanina na yung isa ko ring hat na sinusuot sa Imagine Law, we focus on public health. Actually, kahapon lang, ayun isang araw, alam niyo ba na World Obesity Day? Very interesting. I was in a forum led by DOH, WHO. Tapos doon nabanggit, of course, obesity in general, pero merong special na pagkilala halimbawa sa importance of nutrition for women, especially lactating women, children. So parang in the lens of public health, we see women as one of those sectors, bawat with children, senior citizens, pag pinag-usapan ng road. Pag health, alam na may special na pagkilala. Tapos maliban doon, bago itong programang ito, nag-check ako ng papel ng mga estudyante ko. So feeling ko kaya ako naimbitahan dito kasi first time na ino-offer ng Gokongwei School of Management yung kursong Gender and the Law, Gender a Legal Perspective. Para sa kaalaman ng lahat, hindi naman talaga ako gender expert. Hindi ako magpapanggap na kagaya nila Dr. Lau or nila Jessie Claudio. Pero sa tingin ko kaya ako naimbitahang magturo noon dahil nung nasa law school ako, naging aktibo rin ako sa Human Rights Center. At sa tingin ko yung issue na ito, marami sa mga nakita ko sa mga estudyante ko, hango talaga sa karanasan. At yung mga bata ngayon, maraming opinion, maraming gustong pag-usapan, I think, tungkol sa gender. Kaya sa tingin ko napakaganda na pag-usapan ito sa buwan ng Marso. Hindi lang para sa babae, di ba? Like kagaya ng Bubaswan. One of their titles is a queer-led group. May pagkilala na, hindi lang binary, hindi lang babae yung mundo, na maraming ibang sektor na ngayon nagkakaroon ng boses na magandang mas mapakinggan. Ayun.
Ayan, nasimulan na nga natin yung pag-bring up dun sa gender dimension, no? Siguro, sisimulan ko sa unang katanungan natin na what makes your advocacy issues gendered? Yan. O ano-ano yung mga halimbawa ng mga hamon na hinaharap natin halimbawa sa transport sector, sa public health, na nagpapaiba at nagbibigay halaga na kailangan pagtuunan natin yung issues ng mga kababaihan. Sige.
Ayan.
Tinay ko na ulit.
Correct. Well, for one, it's an honor to be in this space. At ang galing niyo po mag-Tagalog. Kinabahan ako mag-Tagalog. Dahil medium lang po ang aking skills. Charot. Nakakahiya. Anyway, so the sector that I work around is on transportation and mobility, of course. But that intersects a lot of issues. Diba? Because when we talk about mobility, it's not just about getting from point A to point B. It's also advocating for more humane and livable urban spaces in cities. So, we talk about environment, we talk about health, and gender is a very important lens for which we understand how to plan its development. So, at its core, what our movement is trying to fight against is car-centric planning, auto normativity. And a lot of it has to do, a lot of it intersects really with feminist principles. But at its core, of course, it's not just about fighting for women, right? It's more about bringing to light and awareness the different needs and perspectives that are necessary to create more inclusive and accessible policies, systems, and infrastructure. There are a lot of assumptions, and as a result, negative consequences made when we plan and develop our policies primarily from the perspective of able-bodied straight males. That's why in the coalition, or even with the core secretariat, yung mga ops leads, I mentioned in the introduction that we are proudly youth and queer-led. Hindi naman kami lahat, di ba, young and queer, but we are youth and queer-led because we believe in the power of having our leaders not just be young, pero talagang proud, di ba, in terms of how we express ourselves, and gender, even our sexual orientation. And throughout the last 3 years that the coalition has been moving in this space, it has been such an important thing to emphasize, because the spaces that we penetrate, particularly with government, right? We participate in different public hearings, consultations, whether that's with executive agencies or in Congress, with Senate and the House of Reps. Kung papasok ka sa kwarto, more often than not, dominated yan by older people in the bureaucracy, by technical experts who, they have their credentials, they have their experiences. But we notice this and we see it. More often than not, they're all men. And in fact, this happened to one of my colleagues, si Cola, just this morning. She is our representative, our young female representative, to share our position on motor vehicle users road tax. And it's a consultation with the Department of Finance. Nag-send lang ng picture yung isa naming kasama. Tapos una naming napansin, wala Cola, bakit lahat ng tao sa likod mo parang matatandang lalaki? Sabi ko, ilan na ba yung babae dyan? And even when we have meetings or we think about what kinds of people or sectors to field when people are looking for media interviewees, we're always so conscious when we realize, bakit puro lalaki na naman yung sinadjust natin? So, anyway, my point is, this is an example of how we're trying to be aware of the gender issues in our advocacy sa transport. Kasi hindi madalas na nabibigyan ng oportunidad ang kababaihan, ang kabaklaan at ang kabataan na mapakinggan sa mga espasyong napakahalaga. Kasi critical ang mga conversation sa mga policy na pinapasa natin sa kinabukasan ng taong bayan. So, dun muna ako magsisimula. Salamat.
Ang ganda naman nung simula na yan. Sige, Joan, ituloy mo yan.
Ang lalim naman. Gusto ko nauuna nga si Tina kasi napakaganda nung karanasan niya bagong-bago. At like ko sinasabi, mas maganda naririnig ang boses ng bata. I won't claim to be a member of the youth. Pero mas palawakin ko at kukunin ko doon sa binanggit niya na gender as a lens. It's a perspective. At yung binanggit niya yung sino yung boses na matinig, who's the loudest voice in a room, and to have a gender lens necessitates to be able to be more conscious. At kaya ako sobrang intimidated about talking about gender. Because when I was growing up, this was not an issue to me. I grew up in a very strong women-centered family. Lola ko yung nagsimula ng negosyo namin, nanay ko was a politician. So, hindi ko nakita yung kahalagahan niya kasi binaliwala ko siya. At kung makikita mo ako live, malakas ang boses ko, napaka-strong ng personality ko. But now, and it was also, that's why I accepted teaching this course. Kasi nung naririnig ko na yung karanasan ng ibang mga tao, yung how gender, it's not everyone will be able to go to Ateneo. Not everyone will become a lawyer. Ilansan, at napakakunti noon, yung may kapasidad na magsalita. At para magkaroon ng consciousness na yon na, baka hindi naririnig yung ibang mga boses dito. I think when we talk about gender, it's about a consciousness that there might be dominant people in a room, and we should, a part of it, if we were to become advocates, is to be able to bring in those unheard voices. Kasi sa development, minsan yung mga solusyong akala nating napakahirap, minsan yun pala yung makikita mo na, ginagawa na pala nila, hindi lang nakikita, hindi lang naririnig, kasi natatabunan sila nung mas dominanteng perspektiba, mas dominanteng boses. At gender is one of that.
Alright. Nasimulan natin i-bring up yung mga challenges na na-encounter natin dun sa mga pangyayaring nag-oorganisa tayo o kaya kahit sa mga aktibidades natin na pang-araw-araw, kinakaharap natin. kapag nagko-coordinate tayo ng iba't ibang sektor o pag may mga kausap tayong stakeholders. Siguro, pwede bang i-share pa natin yung mga ibang naging karanasan din natin doon? Kasi kung marami tayong mga kabataan at kababaihan at kabaklaan na nakikinig sa atin yan, na hindi pala nag-isolated yung experience ko. May mga kasama pala kung ganun din yung karanasan. Siguro baka pwedeng magkwento pa po tayo ng kaunti tungkol doon.
Siguro simulan ko ngayon tapos si Tina next para salit kami. Bigyan ko lang ng konkretong halimbawa. Halimbawa, nagsimula akong magtrabaho 22. Nagtrabaho ako sa DILG. Ang laging issue sa akin ng lahat ng nakatrabaho ko, dalawa. Ang bata mo, babae ka. Tapos, single ka pa, wala kang asawa, pamilya. So, parang when I enter a room, even if I was the assistant of a secretary, there was always a lens. And hindi ko naman masisi kasi bata naman talaga ako, babae ako, wala akong magagawa doon. Yung dahil nga, iba yung kontekstong pinanggalingan ko, and I was pretty fortunate na yung naging boss ko, walang bahid na, babae ka, lalaki ka, walang ganon. Binigyan niya ako ng boses na in a meeting, magsalita ka, you lead the meeting. He empowered me in that sense. Pero nakita ko hindi lahat ganun. Nung naging abogado ako, isang struggle ko pa rin kahit abogado ako. Ang bata mong abogado, babae ka pa, single ka pa. So, and that single is an issue because I became a lawyer at the age of 30. People were expecting that you're either married or want to get married or have children. So may mga ekspektasyon na hindi tumutugma sa sa in-expect ng mga kasama mo. So ngayon in the space of where I am, for example, road safety, and maybe Tina will pick it up, lagi kong katrabaho LTO, MMDA. So, and that is a very gendered agency, di ba? Like in an enforcement training with MMDA 3 weeks ago, mga 80% were men. Nothing wrong with that kasi maraming enforcer talaga, mga lalaki, mga 2-3 lang yung babae. So kami, puro kaming mga ang nagte-training, puro babae. And part of it, kailangan umakma kami doon sa boses ng audience namin. Kasi hindi namin kailangan makibagay ka, 'di ba? So that's what I think that's one of the challenges of being a woman in a profession like this, where you're dealing with a lot of strong personalities. May kailangang sabayan mo kung ano yung konteksto na yon at maraming mga tao, baka si Tina makakapagdagdag, kakayanin, di ba? Like, kaya kong i-level up yung pagsasalita, yung pag-explain, pero merong bakang iba na hindi. So I think that will always be a challenge kasi kung may pagkakaiba in a room, kailangan marunong kang makibagay. At hindi ko alam sa kabilang perspektiba, kasi syempre babaeng perspective ito, kung sa lalaki, paano yun kung baliktad? So that might also be interesting. So I'll pass it on to Tina.
Ayan. Salamat po. So, ayun na nga. Well, the perspective that I bring would be, and that I want to share, are two things. One first is as a road user, and second is as an organizer in policy advocacy, and that of course relates to what the Joan does. So, first is shedding light on why I identify so much with the work that we do as a road user. And I say road user kasi ang dami kong modes of transport na ginagalawan. And these are experiences that aren't always talked about or considered. So I grew up, of course, with the biases ingrained in me. I am also honored and lucky to have grown up in a household where women are more or less empowered, right? Thanks to my mom for that and to my dad. But then going out of the household, diba, you start to realize the bias, the unfair biases and assumptions that are on you simply because of how you were born. So when it comes to transport, I grew up with the assumption or being taught that women are bad drivers. Yung nanay ko, na naging single mom, naging widow, laging na-accuse na hindi magaling mag-drive. Diba? Lagi siyang nasisigawan sa kalsada. I also have a particular experience when I was riding a jeep home from Makati. At sobrang sikip na rin niya. At alam mo yung practice natin sa jeep na kapag masikip na, sasabit ka na lang sa likod. Di ba? Maraming gumagawa nun. At ako, batang babae, gusto ko rin gawin yun kasi kailangan ko nang umuwi at sumakay. And when I tried doing that, naka-school skirt pa ako at medyo naka-heels kasi pwede na yun nung high school ako. Kunti lang naman. Bigla ako sinabihan na bawal kong gawin yun. Tapos inis na inis ako kasi I remember on that day, parang International Women's Day ata nun. 'Di ba? So, naiintindihan ko naman kung bakit nila sinabi yun kasi it's dangerous or hindi mo dapat gawin yon, etc. Pero at the back of my mind, normal na yan para sa mga lalaki. Bakit ako hindi pwede? 'Di ba? Of course, aside from riding public transport, there's also so much more vigilance and anxiety that we have when walking the streets or even going through the parking lot. I remember encountering this study a few days ago. It's not in the Philippines, but somewhere else. Kung saan inaral using heat maps, yung direction, the different directions that women look at, pay attention to when walking the streets at night. And that was, the differences were studied depending on either the sex or the gender. And sobrang mas matingkad at kalat yung mga kulay ng heat map sa kababaihan kasi mas ino-observe niya yung mga signs of danger sa kapaligiran. At naalala ko talagang nararanasan ko yun hanggang ngayon, and especially in college, nung nagdo-dorm ako sa Katip. Kasi when I got there as a freshie, tinuruan ako na normal lang yun dito, na madilim, kapag uuwi ka after long nights of studying, kailangan may kasama kang lalaki para di ka matakot, para di ka ma-rape o ma-harass. Diba? And for many women now, that is still normal, right? And lastly, with my experience as a cyclist, not only are we vulnerable to road crashes, but we're even more vulnerable to sexual harassment. Recently, and I want to talk about this because no one has been held accountable yet, there was this Instagram account called Casual Cycling Community, anonymously posting corrupt photos of female cyclists, body shaming them. It's insane. No one yet has leads on who was posting those photos, but one of my friends was affected by it. Imagine mo yun, kasi for a lot of really competitive cyclists, and not just the regular commuters, very tight-fitting ang clothes. Of course, you need it in order to move efficiently, but somehow, someone had the gall and the confidence to download those photos, crop it, post it on Instagram, and pick on their body parts. And ever since they were called out, no one has identified who they are. They deleted the account. But I saw how much it affected my female friends. Kasi nga, for one, it already takes so much courage and confidence to get into an attire that shows your body in its full form. Let alone have someone, di ba, take it apart and shame you for it. So those are just a lot of the gendered negative experiences as a road user. But on top of that, as an organizer, as a perceived woman leader in the space, I realized that you will be admired and celebrated for being a woman until you decide to call a man out. They will love you for being amazing, for calling the shots. But sometimes, some of them are just waiting for you to make a mistake and to pull you down and to pick you apart and tell you you're not worthy of the position that you're in. And that's something I experienced last year. It was hard because I was actually just starting out in the space. And personally, I was in the process of negotiating my worth to participate in this advocacy. Kasi wala naman akong advanced degree. Di pa naman ako urban planner, engineer, architect. A lot of what I do is just based on my daily experiences, which are 100% valid. And more importantly, I do have my studies from college, but a lot of people don't really care about that. So anyway, it's something that I still experience, and I have to make up for maybe twice as much as an average male by learning as much as I can, studying, preparing maybe 3 times as hard for whatever hearing, doing my best to read whatever position papers we pass, maybe 4 or 5 times, just to make sure that it's good enough. And anyway, so building up on all of those experiences, and some women still have it worse. You know, I'm in this condition where I always feel like I have to work 10 times as hard, prove myself even more, and really assert my voice. But of course, where I am now, I carry with those experiences a personal and unshaken understanding that whatever other people think of me or assume about me does not dictate what I can do to influence the change that our communities need. So I was about to say sorry for what I just said, but I'm not, because I got used to that. So thank you for listening to all of that.
Salamat. Salamat sa pagbabahagi. Grabe yung mga karanasan niyo, Joan at Tina, na sobrang grounded. Simula dun sa pagsusubok na i-establish yung sarili mo in a space, but also to reach a level of consciousness or awareness that, you know, pinalad tayo o may mga biases din tayo at privileges na naka-shape significantly dun sa experiences natin at yung kaya nating gawin o hindi gawin, no? Siguro sususugan ko lang yun ding paano naman natin ngayon, so yung mga sharing natin ngayon lang is very much on the personal experiences, but how do we push it further to bring in and to make the sectors that we work with realize that there's importance in recognizing gender in policy making, but also in addressing and shaping our development issues and our responses to them.
Siguro simulan ko kasi nung nagsasalita si Tina, pinull up ko yung lecture ko 2 weeks ago on catcalling and the Safe Spaces Act. And in policy making, it's kami in Imagine Law, we always start with data. And interestingly, if we're familiar with the Bawal Bastos Law or the Safe Spaces Act, there was a 2016 survey by SWS prior to the law. And in that survey, kasi yung mga estudyante ko, even when I teach labor every first semester, parang sabi ko, bakit pa natin pinag-uusapan tong sexual harassment, safe spaces? And in a room where 1 out of 2 are men. And I asked the men, like, tingin nyo bakit? Tapos parang, malayo medyo malayo sa karanasan kasi kung di ka nagko-commute, kung nakakotse ka, bakit makaka-relate ka ba, 'di ba, sa mga experience kagaya ni Tina? Pag pinakita ko yung datos na based on this survey, 3 in 5 women have experienced sexual harassment once in their lifetime. And in that range, 65 to 70%, that's wolf whistling or catcalling, use of lascivious language when you're on the street. And 1 out of 2 women who experience that will not report it. Bakit? Kasi, ay, baka kasalanan ng babae or masyado kasing mahala yung suot natin, kaya you were calling for it. And based on that data, that was the basis for the lobbying of what we now have, the Safe Spaces Act or the Bawal Bastos Law. Sabi ko sa mga estudyante ko 3 weeks ago, it would be interesting to see if there is a difference in data after the passage of the law, because this was a commission survey for Esabulis. Wala pa tayong nakita. At kaya ko yan binanggit kasi para malabas sa personal na karanasan, kailangan bumalik tayo sa data. And data is showing us that women, and Tina picked this up, we use, for example, in road safety, the word vulnerable road users, where you will have children, pregnant women, senior citizens. We're one of that. In my space also of food systems, food security, women is part of a vulnerable group. In my space also of doing living wage campaign, yung mga trabaho kong union, 50% of the informal economy are women. And yung mga katrabaho kong union, they organize women as associations, not as unions, kasi yung mga nanay hindi makatrabaho, hindi sila yung blue collar kasi nasa bahay sila. At yung mga ganong karanasan ng mga union na nag-oorganisa, based on, yes, it's data, grounded on experience. And that's how we approach always development. There's a science behind it. You need to study the theory, you need to study the data, but you go also to experience. Doon natin kailangan pagtagpi-tagpiin lahat yan. And that's how we develop policy. Because policies shouldn't exist in a vacuum. Kaya babalik ako dun sa una nating discussion sa pinakasimula Who is in the room when it happens? At yung may pagkilala ngayon para maging advocate ka, not just of women, but anyone na agrabyado, a vulnerable member of the society. It's now an explicit effort to make sure that they are part of the process, the decision-making process. Turning it over to Tina.
Ang ganda. Always a fan. Pero true, no? Thank you so much for mentioning that. As an Institute of Philippine Culture, syempre, diba, we advocate for research that really captures people's experiences. And really the importance of gender disaggregated data. And diba ang trend na nga ngayon, ang gender when it comes to whatever forms or research or surveys we pull out, hindi na lang siya male or female, diba? Pinalawak na natin yung spectrum of choice kasi we realize that being aware of those differences sheds so much more nuance and light. But the question, diba, is why is it important, right? And the battle cry that I will borrow from the community of PWD and inclusion advocates is nothing about us without us, right? Nothing about us without us means in development, in policy, you cannot write about us or make decisions for us without making sure that we have a voice and that we have a say. And same goes for women, diba? And that's why we advocate for paying attention to who is in the decision-making space. So since she mentioned some statistics, I also want to share in the active transport space, we have been seeing a boom, an increase in bicycle owning households. So nag-increase siya over the past few years, because of the pandemic, the improvement of our active transport infrastructure. There were about 29% of cycling households ang na-record noong 2022, 24% lang noong 2021, but in 2023, it rose up to 36%. That is great news. But when we take a look more closely into the data, they also revealed that only 4% of that count are females. Sobrang laki ng gap. And this is not just in the Philippines, it's also a trend, around the world. When we talk about pushing for more inclusive mobility and transportation and more accessible, diba? It's not just about making it more efficient. It's not just about increasing capacity, but it's also about making sure that the sectors that need it the most are also increasing in access. So that's why equity is also an important part of the conversation. For many, many years, no, before we even had a concept of soji and gender, so much of the planning, the building of our cities have been decided by men. And we're really tired of that. Because if we continue allowing them to decide for us all the time, we're not going to make enough progress. They're still going to make wrong assumptions about our bodies. They're still going to decide about what's best for us without even understanding whatever we're experiencing. And that's exactly why we're having this kind of conversation now.
Maraming salamat po. No, grabe, totoo nga na yung policy does not exist in a vacuum. It's very striking, but also a recognition to look around and sit who is sitting at the tables is very important. Kasi that's where the decisions and the actions are made and coordinated. Siguro bilang panghuling tanong na lang, napahabol na at maikli, kung paano natin ngayon, how do we occupy then those tables and those spaces para ma-empower palalo yung mga kababaihan na mag-lead at mag-organisa na para sa mga komunidad at para sa mga advokasya natin? How do we empower women? Sige, go ahead, Tina.
Ayan, gusto ko lang i-connect, no? So, a very important practice that we have in Move as One, and even at We Solve Foundation, is doing our best to always be gender sensitive. So how we get more people to take up space, and especially leadership roles, is, for one, sa hiring practices. Diba? Kailangan maging conscious sa pag-select kung sino ba yung sinasama natin sa pag-mobilize. So recently, when we were getting new hires for civic engagement, we were just looking for women. We were looking for queer folks, and that's what we did. But then again, no, it's not just about gender. It's also about other important characteristics, such as where are you from? And for us, it was important na hindi lang Manilenyo ang sasali sa coalition. Kailangan ng perspective, no, of advocates who experience challenges with transport and mobility different from Imperial Manila. Another thing that we do is, in practice, particularly sa work, sa daily work, we make sure to recognize and to give grace to the women who carry multiple roles in their lives. It's a privilege that in our work arrangements, it's flexible enough. We are allowed to either beg off meetings or attend the meetings depending on what our priorities are. And in our workplace, we understand that our duty to advocacy and to work is not always number one. Sa mga sektor namin, maraming mga leaders na nanay din, or kung hindi nanay, mga tita na ginagabayan ng marami niyang mga pamangkin. Marami din sa amin ang may multiple responsibilities, of course, to different organizations and communities. And we also give grace and understand when most especially there are days that maybe they can't give their best. A lot of the women leaders in our coalition experience, still are dealing with trauma of gender-based harassment, with their own mental health, with the unfair responsibilities that they face even at home. And as a community, as a movement, we're always making sure to make space for that and to remind each other that hindi siya kawalan at hindi rin siya ikababawas ng dignidad at competence niya bilang miyembro ng sektor at ng movement.
Ang ganda naman nun. Very progressive ang approach. Sige. John, ikaw naman.
Sa akin, sagutin ko lang in two ways para lang balikan yung konteksto. Yung isa kong estudyante, nung nagsimula yung course ko, ang tanong niya sa akin, as in after class, sabi niya, Ma'am, bakit ba sektor ng babae? One out of two, like statistically, we're a tie, di ba? We're a tie. And yet, we're carving out special laws for women. And so, parang meron daw kasi siyang nakausap na sinasabi, hindi naman dapat na may Magna Carta pa for women or violence against women and children. Kasi nga, like, in the spaces we are, it appears na women have a voice. And kaya gusto kong pick upin yung binanggit ni Tina na yung gender, kailangan mo siyang i-layer with inequality. I mean, hindi patas. Kung taga saan ka, kung nasa urban Manila ka versus someone in Samar na walang access to education, healthcare, dagdagan mo ng layer ng babae, dagdagan mo pa ng layer ng inequality, poverty, nag-iibang lens siya. And that's where I think that will always be a challenge to not just look at it in a gender lens. Layer it with other aspects na may pagkakaiba. At doon ako pupunta sa, ayaw nga sabihin intersectionality, pero yan, binanggit ni Tina. Ayaw nga sabihin kasi baka, it's a big word. Pero pangalawa, at doon ako papasok sa sagot sa tanong, yung isang reading ko in my class is by Judith Lorber. The problem with talking about gender is it seems too big. Kasi nga, it's one out of two generally. So like the way Lorber explains it is to be able to address it, it's very simplistically, it's one, modification of behavior by individuals. Yun yung binanggit ni Tina na part of it, polisiya. If you were in a workplace, we have laws which say 105 maternity leave. Ang ganda, ang dami for women. Dagdagan mo ng layer. Bakit babae lang yung nag-aalaga ng anak? Bakit hindi pwedeng patas? So, and that question will now bring you to the second lens, which is modification by individuals, but the structure has to be able to support it. And as a lawyer, the lens we will always look at is law. Because law, very simplistically, might be the easiest way, not always effective, pero yun kasi may carrot and stick of enforcement. And so that's why tayo in fairness, like we're top 16 in the gender index. I mean, we're na kasi nga compliant tayo with the checklist of all the laws eh. We're very good at that. But the challenge now is trying to bridge that individual system via workplace, education, training institution. So, yun I think, and to say, how do we empower women? It has to be inclusive. It's not just a women's issue. It's an issue with men. It's an issue of all sectors. Because when someone is left behind, it's not good for society, diba? And that's how we always want to look at it.
Alright, maraming salamat po. Napakamalaman ng ating diskusyon. At talagang grounded sa experience, sa theory, sa sige Tina, go ahead.
Sorry, na-interrupt pala. Hindi, may gusto na ako idagdag na, to wrap it up. I think it's important for us as a society. Charot. It's important for us to really give the right names to experiences, right? Diba how we define a problem or a situation determines what we do to address it or to improve it. And going back to the work that we do in planning, in policy, in influencing our culture and the law, we need to continue developing frameworks that will recognize, measure, make visible, or give value to and properly account for the various and diverse experiences that we have. But it's ultimately, di ba, it's not just about looking at the diversity, it's also paying attention to who is least heard, who is not given enough attention and voice. And at the end of the day, we should always err to that side of the spectrum. So, yun lang po yung gusto kong idagdag.
Ayan, maraming salamat, Tina. Grabe, na-excite ako lalo tuloy sa mga susunod pang segment ng Women's Month special ng Baka naman. Pwede na, ito yung simula pa lang, pero with the bang. At sobrang grounded sa experience, sobrang grounded sa research at data. Hay, grabe. Maraming salamat uli sa ating mga bisita sa napakayamang talakayan sa hapong ito. No? Siguro kung may take away man ako dito na, although ang dami-dami kong notes dito, sa kung ano ang paano natin pa mapaiigting ang boses ng kababaihan sa policy making at development work natin. Sobrang napabilib ako na kahit iba-iba tayo ng disiplina at propesyon, may malaking pagkilala or yung awareness at consciousness natin na may mga dominant voices talaga sa iba't ibang sektor. Pero ang trabaho natin bilang babae, bilang advocates, bilang organizers, madala sa mga mesang ito yung mga boses na unheard at to develop paradigms and frameworks that would recognize the need to maybe extend the table for us to occupy more spaces also. But also recognizing the different layers o yung intersectionality nga na sinasabi natin ng inequality at marginality. Hindi lang to issue pangkababaihan, issue din to para sa mga kalalakihan, able-bodied, disabled, sa mga bakla, sa ating lahat. This isn't just a women's issue, but if we bring those unheard voices to the table, it benefits us all as a wider society in general. Sobrang salamat, Tina at Joan, sa pagbabahagi talaga ng inyong mga karanasan, istorya, at talagang you value din for data and research in all that we do. Bago magtapos itong ating talakayan, humingi muna tayo ng kaunting pabaon. Yan. Mula kay Tina at Joan, simulan natin siguro ang ating sagot sa Baka naman pwede. Ayan. Kung sino man ang gustong mauna, go ahead.
Ako na lang para si Tina na mag-end. Baka naman pwede na gender equality for all.
On. Salamat, Joan. Ikaw, Tina.
Hala! Baka naman pwedeng ipasa na natin ang SOGI Equality Bill.
Tama.
Yun po. At marami pang iba. Pero isulong natin yan. Period.
Maraming salamat, Joan at Tina. Dito po nagtatapos ang Baka Naman Pwede. Maraming salamat muli, Ms. Cristina Batalla at Atty. Joan Dela Cruz para sa pagpapaunlak sa aming imbitasyon. Baka naman pwede nyo ring i-like ang Institute of Philippine Culture sa Facebook at para sa iba pang mga announcements at events. Ayan, hanggang sa susunod, ako po si Cherie mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture. Patuloy po tayong mag-ingat at laging tandaan kung may gustong maunawaan, baka naman pwede nating pag-usapan. Salamat!
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede?
Baka naman pwede.
Mga isyung napapanahon, ating pag-usapan. Baka naman pwede. Gamit ang mga pananaw mula sa iba't ibang kalinangan.
Baka naman pwede.
Mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture, kami inyong samahan, tayo'y maghuntahan. Dito lang sa
Baka naman pwede.
Tuwing Huwebes, alas 3 ng hapon, dito lang sa Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.